like counts towards like the series, isn't that right? There's some kind of like point series.
Yeah, any one that the peddler runs usually counts towards the point series, except the Capalbo Memorial. That's just more of like a relaxed kind of fun thing. But
I'm thinking about signing up for that.
yeah, that one's in late May.
Yeah,
The registration's not open yet, but
I think it opens tomorrow, is what I saw.
yeah, I'll probably sign up for it.
Yeah, I'm definitely signing up for the Myrtle Beach Championship. Um,
Yeah, just waiting for that to open up.
yeah, I think that opens up a couple days after Easter.
That one will have to get on quick, I think, because I mean there'll be more people available to play because it's 3 courses,
Yeah.
but I think you only get points if you play in MA2 or higher. I don't think like as MA3 we get points.
Oh, well, damn.
Well, because the point leaders get to play in MBO, and I don't think there's MA3 in MBO.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Be nice to be good enough to play in the open.
I mean we could. They're not going to stop us from
Yeah, I
registering.
know. What I'm saying is it'd be nice to be
We
good
would
enough
just
to be
probably,
like competitive in the NBO.
yeah,
Because MA2 still plays from the shorts, don't they?
yeah.
Yeah. So I feel
They
I
just
feel like if I go play Splinter enough and learn the lines there, like
MA3 is like the average score is probably going to be like -2 to +5 or something like that.
right
Whereas MA2 is probably going to be closer to like from short tees, they're going to be closer to like
and
-7 or
under.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I feel like if I go play Splinter enough, like it's not. I feel like it's not an exceptionally hard course. Like Sockesty is difficult. Um, but that's only because like if you have a bad shot, you're screwed. Recovering is so difficult. Whereas
Yeah.
at Splinter, I don't feel that way at all. And so I feel like if you go learn the course, learn the lines, I don't think it would take too much, assuming you play it enough and get consistent at it, to where you can be pretty consistent at being under par by like, 2 or 3 strokes. I feel pretty good at the level I'm at to where like I feel like I could get down to being a consistent like 2 under type player there.
Yeah.
I mean, I went bogey free until
Whole 10.
hole 10, and then I had 3 bogeys, and really only one of those. Well, I guess hole 10 too. Hole 10 and hole 18, I would say were like legit bogeys. Hole 15, I think, is what it was. I got screwed out of a par.
Yeah, you got because you had that really nice upshot after the
Yeah,
first available tree hit, whatever,
yeah.
and
I had a
then
chain out from 10 feet,
yeah,
15 feet. So I don't like it. Still counts, but in my mind, I don't technically count that as a true bogey. That's more like I feel like there's more bad luck associated with that.
yeah.
All right, we are live, I believe.
Are we?
Should be.
Are we? Are
Let
you
me
sure?
let me double check this.
Yeah. No, you're right. We are live. Look at
Hey, look at us. We're doing something on the channel.
that. Yeah.
Let me just do this. As I always do it.
I'm hoping next week I'll be moved in. I think
Heyo.
I'll get most of it done. I should have time Saturday. I don't think I have any
Nice.
plans Saturday, so I should just be able to get everything in there.
Let's say how much do y'all have left to do?
We need to insulate the garage door. We need
Okay.
to install the lights. Those are like the two kind of big things, and then we need to pull the outlets out a little bit so we can put covers on them.
I gotcha.
Um, but that's mainly it. After that, it's just getting everything in there and decorating it and trying to soundproof it and all that. So
Not bad, man. Not bad. All right.
Neither ear on, so we know it's serious.
We ready to do this?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right. Oh, I know I need to pull up. Hold on.
Doesn't sound like you're ready.
I'm not ready. Thought I was.
I'm not ready.
Hey, ESPN's got the lines back. Nice. That's what I need.
Did not have him last week?
They did have them last week, but there was like 2 or 3 weeks there where they didn't for whatever reason.
Weird.
Wow, there are some low tickets. Low price tickets.
Well, yeah, because the home teams this week are the not
Eddie.
big fan bases.
Yeah. Terrible.
Probably the Renegades is probably the most popular, or maybe the Roughnecks, one of those two, are going to be the most popular home team this week.
The Roughneck tickets are $24. The rest of them, you could go to the Vipers game for $8. You could go to the Renegades game for $7. And if you really want to spend big, you could go to the DC Defenders versus Orlando Guardians for $3. For
Just make it free.
$3.
Just give out free tickets at that point. I mean,
I mean, honestly, if Orlando was within like a 3 to 4 hour drive from me, I would go to that game because it's DC and DC's that good, and it's $3. But I'm not driving 8 hours to Orlando for an XFL game.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it to it, man. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Booth Review, the XFL edition. As always, I'm your host, Devin Primrose, joined by the Sultan of Spice, Mr. Peter Strauss. What is going on, man?
I am sore as heck. That's what I am.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
We got to spend the weekend together, which was nice. You slept on my couch.
I did.
It was a wonderful time. My dogs attacked you every single morning.
They did. These are all facts.
We played a lot of disc golf, probably too much disc golf, and my body hurts. So
is there ever such a thing as too much disc golf?
If it causes your limbs to not work, then yes, that's probably the line.
We played a total of 4 rounds together across like 36 hours.
Yeah.
And then I, for some reason, decided to go play a 5th round about 4 hours after that. And it was at that point that I started really feeling it. On the drive back to your house from the course, I was like, maybe that was a mistake. My arm was definitely feeling it. I'm good now. I'm not as bad. Maybe a little stiff in the leg still, but that's just old age getting to me. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, man. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play great, but I had fun.
No, you certainly did not. One of us did, though.
The 4th round, the 4th round back 9, I finally figured out how to play disc golf. I remembered how.
Yeah, finally. Yeah, for those that don't know, if you're a fan of disc golf, if you like disc golf, and like to play, like to follow the Disc Golf Pro Tour, me and Pete do have another podcast that we do following the Pro Tour called Putt Stuff. I'm going to put in a little plug there for that. We usually record it on Tuesdays. It's usually out at the same time as our XFL podcast. But we follow the Pro Tour, so we do it based around when those events are. There's not an event this week, so we won't have a new episode this week, but we'll be back next week with that. So if you want to come check that out, that'd be cool. That'd be fun. It's something
which
we
also
enjoy.
means you have plenty of time to go back and listen to the previous episodes,
Yeah.
even though you already know the winners. Like, we're still funny, I think, personally.
If you don't know the winners, you can always catch up and watch the highlights watch the post production on YouTube. So there you go. That's something to do if football ain't enough for you. But speaking of football, XFL had a handful of decent games. I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch much of them. I watched one complete game this weekend, and the other three I caught the highlights of.
Yeah, I mean, what highlights were to be had of a couple of these games, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm same way. I watched a little bit of DC and Houston Monday night before my usual Monday night gig, but
Yeah.
it was a little wild weekend. Some shocking scores, some not so shocking scores.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
Well, who you guys your best of the booth?
I was going to say, one of the shocking things from this weekend was how dominant the Defenders' passing game was. For those who, regular listeners, you know that the one thing that's always kind of been the Achilles heel, like the thing we're always scared of the DC Defenders, is their passing game. And it came out in full force this week, and one of the biggest reasons for that was wide receiver Lucky Jackson, which, what a name, Lucky Jackson. 5 receptions for 136 yards and a touchdown. This dude was running the full length of the field, getting open for Jordan Tiamu, and Derek King, who had one pass. But yeah, it just felt like watching the highlights every other play. It was like, there goes Lucky Jackson.
Yeah.
Off on his own. It's just crazy. And this team in general, Jordan Teamu, 19 of 31, 245, and 2 touchdowns. Like, if Jordan Teamu is good again, I don't know who's stopping this team.
Oh, we'll get to Teamu. Don't you worry about that.
But yeah, best of the booth. I know sometimes we ignore the skill players, but we can't ignore Lucky Jackson and his 136-yard day.
Yeah, he had a huge day for them. Jordan Teamu really stepped up when he had to, and like I said, we'll get to him in a little bit. I probably should have had you go second because it would have led very well into my under review. But yeah, Lucky Jackson, hats off to him. Great day against what has historically been, I say historically, through 5 games, has been a very good Houston defense, especially the Houston secondary. And they did not show up on Sunday. I kind of want to just dive into my under review right now and kind of do things out of order here because of how well it would flow. And I think I'm going to. We're doing it live, man. We're making it up on the fly. My under review this week goes hand in hand with your best of the booth there, and it is that Houston secondary and maybe even the defensive coordinator, because I feel like the defensive game plan was not well thought out. I think they went into that game plan hoping to stop the rush, which they did for the most part. But in doing so, they allowed the passing game to just take over, which is something that DC has not done at all season. Let me hit you with some stats here because I took the time to go through and do some math to figure all these up because the XFL did not want me to know these stats. Apparently, it was a lot of difficulty to figure them out. But Teamu, through 5 games this season, has been a garbage quarterback. Essentially, terrible. Has not been. I mean, I would say he is maybe bottom 2 or 3 in the league. That's how bad he's been. 57 of 101, which is just over 56%. 658 yards, which is 131 yards a game. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. That's what he had through the first 5 games going into this game against the Roughnecks. The Houston secondary in the previous 5 games were allowing 55.5% completion percentage, only 189 yards allowed per game, and they had 8 picks across 5 games. So lighting it up, tearing quarterbacks apart. And then on Monday Night Football, Jordan Ta'amu came in and went 19 of 31 for 61% completion percentage, which is probably the highest he's had all season. Definitely is better than his average across the first 5 games. 245 yards, which is like a third of his 5 games combined. He had it in that one game. 2 touchdowns, no picks. An incredibly efficient game. They could rely on him. They didn't have to rely on Abram Smith, I think is their running back's name. They didn't have to worry about him chugging along, although I think he still put up 91 yards for them, 95 yards, something like that. Had a very good day. Where was the secondary? What happened to the dominant secondary that we had through those first 5 games? What happened to the secondary that made quarterbacks fearful? I think that it's just bad coaching and from the defensive coordinator to game plan for stopping the rush and only stopping the rush. I just don't think. I think we even talked about this last week that if Houston wanted to beat this DC team, all they had to do was stop the rush, unless Ta'amu can find a way to get the passing game going, which is exactly what he did. And I feel like it's okay for that to happen through like a quarter, maybe even a full half. But at halftime, if you see that Ta'amu's having a decent game, you should probably make some adjustments and say, hey, maybe let's start focus on shutting down Lucky Jackson and their wide receivers and make their day a little bit more difficult. And, if Abram Smith rips off a 20-yarder here or there, okay, we'll live with that. Let's not let them beat us through the passing game. I don't know. I think it was just poor game planning, poor execution, poor something. Because Jordan Ta'amu should not look that good based off of what he did the 5 previous weeks. So I've got to put the Houston secondary under review.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, it's not like they stopped the run game either. Abram Smith, it was 19 attempts for 95 yards. I think they had a total of like 116 rushing yards still with their other running back. So
yeah,
it's not like they necessarily stopped that either. My theory is still just like, I think the Houston Roughnecks are a tiny bit fraudulent. Like they're still in the top 4. But I think they're the best of the worst. Because when you talk about how dominant they've been all season, but when you look at their schedule, they played the Guardians twice, they played the Renegades, they played the Brahmas, and their last week they lost. The first time they played a top 4 team in the Seattle Sea Dragons, they lost. And now the second time they play a top 4 team in the Defenders.
And they get another test this weekend.
Yeah, so some things might be brewing in the South. Maybe it wasn't as clinched as we thought it was. Probably still is. I mean, they probably got too big of a head start, but we can dream for the Brahmas.
Yeah,
we can dream. No, yeah, and Brandon Silvers didn't do himself any favors either that game. That's not my under review, but I think it's just something to point out.
I do wonder if there was something going on with him because they kept using Cole McDonald a lot, which they've kind of used him in like Taysom Hill type situations to where like he's probably going to come in and run, but maybe he'll get off a pass here and there, catch the defense sleeping, something like that. But he was used a lot more than just that type role on Monday night. So I do wonder if there was some kind of issue with Silvers, maybe some kind of injury popped up, something. I haven't looked into it. I don't know if anything's been reported, but I do wonder that.
I mean, it's either that or just his performance the last 2 games.
True.
I don't know how much he was getting switched out versus. But Brandon Silvers had 17 pass attempts. Cole McDonald had 11.
Yeah.
Cole McDonald also had 6 carries. So, and in Brandon Silver's 17 attempts, he only completed 10 passes for 111 yards and 1 pick, which wasn't really his fault. It bounced off a receiver's hands and the guy caught it. So,
yeah.
Do what you will with that, but still, from the guy that we were considering as the best quarterback in this league a few weeks ago, he's not played up to that level.
Well, speaking of best quarterbacks in the league, I'll just go ahead and hit my best of the booth real quick since we're doing this all wacky style. Uh, my best of the booth is going to be AJ McCarron, who looked lights out on Saturday. He went 23 of 29, which is 79% completion percentage, 236 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The man looked phenomenal, and I get it. He's playing, the Vegas Vipers in front of their, 6,000 fans at a garbage stadium. But he did what he's supposed to do. Like when you play bad teams, you're supposed to put up numbers like that, and that's what he did. It's tough, man. I still think Silvers is a great quarterback. And obviously you've got Danucci right there too, but McCarron I think is he's keeping himself in the MVP race. And I go back to, I think it was our very first legit or counterfeit about AJ McCarron, and I said I don't think he'll be there at the end of the season. And through 6 weeks, he's proven me wrong. Like he looks very much like a top 3 quarterback in this league, and looks to be in the MVP hunt. I don't know. Part of me almost wants to say Abram Smith should get some MVP consideration also.
Oh yeah,
because if he's not running the ball like he is for DC, I don't know if DC is 6-0 right now. Although that defense is something else, so maybe. But yeah, McCarron, fantastic day against a bad team, but fantastic day nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a blowout too. Like
yeah. It was 17-0 at the half.
Yeah, final score 29-6.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the Vipers' offense has been the better of the team between the offense and the defense, and even they couldn't. I mean, Luis Perez, 13 of 20 for 99 yards, 2 picks. And then Brett Huntley, for the little time he got out there, was 9 of 18 for 120 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
But that Battlehawks team, I'm assuming that they listened to the podcast and decided that, like, hey, maybe we should try to win games.
That's exactly what happened.
So, well, let's go to quarterbacks, and not specifically quarterbacks, but let's go to teams on the other side of the spectrum here for doing things out of order. Let's get back in order for my under review. And I'm going to go similar to what you did last week with a winning team. And that is maybe the worst winning offense of the year so far. And the San Antonio Brahmas. Listen, they gained some respect back. They beat the Renegades. The bottom half of, like, we were talking about this too. Trying to do the power rankings this week with the bottom half of this league is like, who is worse than who at this point? Like, obviously the Guardians haven't won, but like besides that, like, I don't really know what to do with any of these teams anymore.
Yeah.
The final score is 15-9. I'm not sure exactly what happened with Jack Cohn, if he's injured or if they're just trying something different. But they had 2 quarterbacks in. Jawan Pass took, which again for a quarterback has a great name, should be good, right? 8 of 14 for 57 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. So just over 50% completion percentage, just over 50 yards, and nothing to show for it. Other quarterback, Packers legend, Kurt Benkert, one of 6 with 1 pick and no touchdowns. Like, the only player on offense that did anything worth knowing is their running back, Jacques Patrick, 15 carries for 82 yards. Pretty decent game for him, but still didn't get a touchdown. This offense did not score a single touchdown. They only won because their defense was able to hold the Renegades the whole game, which isn't hard to do. The Renegades aren't a good team either. And then they got a lucky, that dude stripped the ball. I can't call it luck. That dude stripped the ball out of Kyle Sloter's hands. And they got a scoop and score. And so they were able to win by a touchdown. So, Brahmas, again, you got to win. You have some respect back. Maybe I'll pick you if you're playing a bad team. But you still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Houston's looking a little weak. If you can just win some more games, if you can get your offense together, because your defense seems to be playing okay, just get your offense together. Hines
Yeah.
Ward, if you're listening, just get your offense together, man. And then you have a shot. You're I think only still 2 games behind now. Right? Roughnecks 4-2, Brahmas 2-4. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 games behind with 4 weeks left. 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. It's possible. Just get your stuff together. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the Brahmas continue to be baffling. I don't know what to say about this team. Like I really don't. I think I'm getting to the point of just thinking that they are actually a bad team. It's a bad team that. Hmm, I think it's a low grade mid team, if that makes sense. I don't want to call them flat out bad because I feel like a bad team. Like I'm probably never going to pick the Vipers or the Guardians to get a win. Can it happen? Sure, it's football. Is it probable to happen? No. With the Brahmas, I think there's still certain situations where I would pick them, depending on who they play, and so that's why I think they're like a low grade mid team. Like it's like they're the definition of sub mediocre like play. Um, I don't think they're. I'm off calling them even good at this point. I'm probably off even calling them a talented team. I think they're just okay, and they're probably playing worse than the talent level, but even that talent level isn't necessarily good. I hope all of that makes sense. I know I'm not saying it the best way, but I just feel like that's where that team is. Like, if they somehow sneak into the playoffs, I don't think it's good. And what sucks is like I don't think it's good to have the Renegades in the playoffs either. The Roughnecks can obviously still hang. Sure, they just got beat by Seattle and DC in back-to-back weeks, but Seattle and DC are really good teams. And it's not like the Roughnecks got completely obliterated. They kept themselves in that game against
Yeah.
DC. And I want to say that they did the same against Seattle, although I know Seattle got off to a very good start. But
Yeah, it was still a one-score game with Seattle.
right, and that's because DC's a good enough team to where they can keep themselves in a position like that against probably at this point better teams. And the Renegades aren't that. The Brahmas are not that, and the Vipers wish they were that. So I think it's just bad for the league to have any of those three teams I just mentioned make it into the playoffs, and unfortunately, one of them is going to,
Yeah.
at the expense of either Seattle or St. Louis because of the way that the divisions shake out.
Yeah. I just think if because the San Antonio defense has not been bad this year by any means. If you look at their, you know,
Right,
their first 6 games, only 15 points allowed against, or 18 points allowed, sorry, against the Battlehawks, only 12 allowed against Orlando.
right.
Only the highest they let at all this year was 22 against Houston, which is one of the highest scoring teams in the league. Only 15 points with the Sea Dragons, who are also one of the highest scoring teams in the league.
Was that one of the Sea Dragons' first games, though?
That was week 4. That was the Sea Dragons' first
Okay,
win, I think.
okay,
No, their first one was against the Vipers. That was the week after they put up 30 on the Vipers.
okay.
So
Interesting.
then,
All right.
very next week, week 4, only 15 allowed with them. And then the last 2 weeks, they only allowed 12 with the Renegades last week and only 9 with the Renegades this week.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're averaging only allowing like 14, 15 points a game.
Yeah,
So
but
their defense is there. I'm not saying it's like the best or even a top half defense, but they have pieces there to where if they could get balance with the offense, I could see them being in the playoffs and being more okay with it than the rest of the worst teams.
yeah, maybe. Um, I I think I would still maybe pick them over the Renegades to get in. But I just don't. Neither one of those teams makes that game interesting to me. The South Championship is so irrelevant to me currently because of the fact
Yeah,
that one of those two teams is going to get slaughtered by the Roughnecks. And that's not even saying like I still have faith in the Roughnecks even though they've had two poor showings, and I'm with you. I think they might be a little fraudulent, but I think that they're good enough to beat the pants off of either the Brahmas or the Renegades in a
yeah.
South Championship, which means that unfortunately, in a game in which the a trip to the XFL Championship is on the line, we're going to get a blowout, and that's just not good for football.
No.
But
We'll see. Maybe they can make something click, but they have very little time.
yeah, yeah. Do we have a legit counterfeit this week?
Um, yeah, mainly my legit or counterfeit is can anybody stop the defenders? Are they going to go undefeated?
Uh,
Legit or counterfeit? Let's look at the rest of their schedule, shall we?
yeah,
This week they play the Orlando Guardians.
that's a win.
The week after, week 8, they play the Seattle Sea Dragons.
That could be a tough contest.
Week 9, they play the Renegades.
That's a win.
And week 10, they play the Brahmas.
That's a win also. So if the Sea Dragons cannot do it in week 8, then yes, the DC Defenders will go 10-0, which again still feels wrong to say because they've had to lean on their run game so much. But apparently, if you can slow down their run game, their passing game can come alive when it needs to.
Which I am worried about the Sea Dragons a little bit, especially for that matchup because they didn't play great against the Ben DiNucci had another not great game against the Guardians this week. I mean, yeah, one score game. DiNucci was only 18 to 35 for 177.
Yeah.
Didn't get much. They had, I mean, DiNucci was also most of their rushing yards, so
yeah, I feel like that game. The interesting thing about that game is that it will quite possibly be for a trip to the North Championship. I say possibly. The Defenders will probably already have a spot locked down if they win that game. The Sea Dragons are because of the Battlehawks, they need every win they can get, and so if you lose to the Defenders, you're putting yourself in a tough spot.
Well, really, week 9, the Sea Dragons and the Battlehawks play each other. So that's probably going to be the game that decides it.
That is true.
But the Battlehawks have an easier remaining schedule. Their hardest game is coming this week, which we'll get to that in our picks. But they have that, and then the game against the Sea Dragons. But I would definitely argue that the Roughnecks are a bit easier of an opponent than the Defenders. So.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the Defenders might do it. We might get XFL 3.0 first season, 12-0 team, or yeah, right? Yeah, 12-0 team.
Yeah, yeah. If they go all the way to the championship and win the championship, yeah. Which didn't. I'm trying to remember the records last year, but didn't the Generals come? Or not the Generals. The Stallions come close to doing that in the USFL.
I think they lost like week.
I think they only had one loss. I want to say they only had one loss.
I'm gonna try to find it.
But yeah, I think this team is definitely talented enough to do it, and I think that they have the remaining schedule to make it happen. I mean, again, unless the Sea Dragons can step up and find a way to do it, DC is absolutely winning the other 3 games. I would go and put money on that today just because of the state of those other 3 teams. And then the tough part will come in the division championship because I don't like Battlehawks Defenders Part 3. Uh, I could see the Battlehawks sneaking out of there with a win, and the same for Seattle DC matchup Part 3. I could see Seattle possibly sneaking out of there with a win,
Yeah.
just because it's tough. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. Because at that point you guys know each other so well. There's so much film to watch to study the other team, and look back at the previous matchups. It's tough to do, but this Defenders team is certainly skilled enough to do it.
Yeah. If you want to talk about some anything will happen football in the USFL last year, the and I don't remember, they might have sat people because they were probably clinched basically as the, they play all the games at home anyway, so that being 1 or 2 seed doesn't really matter. But their first loss came in week 9 to the Houston Gamblers.
That's right. That's right.
Who,
Old
if you
Houston.
didn't follow the USFL last year, were the team that should have won games that never won a game until they played the best team in the league. So
yeah, Houston constantly found ways to lose games, and then somehow snuck that one out. Yeah, that was interesting. I forgot about that. Well, let's take a look at our power rankings, man. I'm assuming
power rankings. Yep, still at number 8, the Orlando Guardians. My good buddy Nick, who play D&D with every week, and actually he's coming up to visit in a couple weeks, so we'll get to play some disc golf with him too. He went to the Orlando Guardians game and left in the third quarter because not a ton going on. As close of a game as it was, just not a ton going on there. But he sat on the visitor side and was, like within arm's reach of Ben DiNucci and Josh Gordon. So that's fun. But that's about the only fun thing about it. About the Guardians games are the opposing team. So, Guardians still at number 8.
Yeah, makes sense.
Despite every team above them on my list, at least in the bottom half, scoring less points than they did this week. So,
yeah, but Guardians are still the Guardians. We know what this team is. I think you could have made a legitimate counterfeit for if they'll go 0-10, and I think I would have probably said yes, they will, because they're that bad. I think that they. Like, I just want to look for fun now. The Guardians play the Defenders this week. That's a loss. They play the Renegades the following week. That could possibly be a win.
I would argue that they have 2 winnable games.
The Brahmas and the Renegades?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. However, in both of those, I'm still probably going to take the Renegades and the Brahmas just because statistically, the Guardians are terrible. They're stinky poo-poo.
Yeah.
I've also got them in the 8th spot. 7th spot, I've got the Vipers. I'm sure you do too. Is that accurate?
Yes, I do have the Vipers at number 7. They dropped the spot. They were at 6 for me last week because the Brahmas were punished. But the Brahmas got the win, so they are not punished anymore, except for being under review. But
Vipers are a step above stinky poo poo, I guess. Like, there's definitely a pretty foul stench coming from them, but it's not like full blown landfill stench like Orlando Guardians.
Their offense looks good more times than the Orlando Guardians offense looks good.
Sure, we'll go with that. That's why they're just a step better. In the 6th
they also
spot,
have a win.
Yeah, well, it's over the Guardians. So in the 6th spot, I have the San Antonio Brahmas. Like I said, I'm losing faith very quickly in San Antonio. Unfortunately, I wanted them to be good. I wanted that to be my team, but just didn't work out that way. Who you got 6?
So we're a little bit different here. I put the Renegades at 6. Like I said, unpunishing the Brahmas. The Brahmas got the win this week, and the Renegades didn't exactly look great in their win over the Brahmas last week either.
Yep.
I think the Renegades are the biggest frauds in the league, and unfortunately, they still are probably going to get a playoff spot. So, but I have them at number 6, and then obviously the Brahmas at number 5. There's literally the gap between the bottom half and the top half of the league is so large.
It's huge. Yeah.
You could fit the entirety, like if you put all of the people from attendance from a St. Louis Battlehawks game like in a line, you could fit them, all 40,000 of them, in between 5 and 4 on this list.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I was gonna say the landfill that is the Orlando Guardians, you could fit between 4 and 5.
but
Yeah,
no, just put like the end of, if you haven't seen Us, sorry, spoiler warning for the ending of that movie, but when they're all on a line at the end, just like holding hands, like all across the world, pretty much, like, yeah, that amount of people in a single file line, that's the distance between 4 and 5 on this
yeah.
list.
I have the Renegades at 5 for me, so we basically just flip flop those, and I'm okay with either order. Those two teams are very similar, and both very not good. And so, like I said earlier, it's a shame one of them is going to make the playoffs because they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
So, done with the stinky poo poo teams, on to the good teams, the actual great teams of the XFL. In the fourth spot, I have the Houston Roughnecks. Who do you have number 4?
I also have the Houston Roughnecks.
What a slide for them, man. They were in the one spot 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much until their first loss.
Pretty much until they started playing good teams.
Yeah. Again, and I said it earlier, I think not as big as the Renegades, but I think the Roughnecks are a little bit fraudulent. And
Yeah,
they
I
started
agree.
playing good teams and realized they were not the best. They're still going to make the playoffs. I don't think the Brahmas and the Renegades are going to jump them. If anything, just the Brahmas will jump the Renegades.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, number 4.
Yep, I'm with you. This is where I feel like we're going to get a little bit different, just because you have more faith in this team than I do. And that's not to say I don't like them. I think they're a very good team. But I have the Sea Dragons at number 3. And again, 2 and 3, I think you could flip flop in either order, and I'd be okay with. I think they're both very similar, and just like with the Renegades and the Brahmas, it's a shame that one of these teams is going to miss out in the playoffs, because they are miles better than the fourth team coming from that South Division. But yeah, I have the Sea Dragons at 3. Who do you have at 3?
I have the Battlehawks at 3. Like you said,
I
I'm a
figured that
bigger
was the case.
believer. I am the bigger believer in the Sea Dragons, and I know they've had a rough couple weeks, but they've still got the wins. They're
Yeah.
still finding a way to win football games, whereas the Battlehawks had to bounce back from a gross loss to the Defenders.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how it goes this week, and they play each other in 2 weeks, so we'll get more of an idea of who's actually the better team coming up. But yeah, so number 3, I have the Battlehawks. Number 2, I have the Sea Dragons, so I assume you have the Battlehawks.
I do have the Battlehawks at number 2, which means that obviously at number 1 we have the undefeated 6-0, can't beat them, the DC Defenders.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous how good this team is. The defense has been lights out all season. Good luck against that defense. That defense will stop you every which way. They will turn the ball over, or I guess not turn the ball. They will get takeaways, and turn those takeaways into points very quickly. I want to look up an
yeah.
interesting stat. I don't know quite how to look this up. Well, maybe they have it on the XFL site. That I want to know the top scoring defense, because I feel like it might be DC. Let's see. DC has had 3 pick sixes. Yeah, they're the top scoring defense. They have had 3 pick sixes. The Brahmas had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and the Roughnecks had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and the Renegades had 2 pick sixes. But that's it. Like I said, DC will get takeaways, and they will score points off those takeaways. I just think that they're an incredible team. The only thing that worries
Yeah.
about me is the one dimension of the offense, but wasn't so one-dimensional this
Yeah,
weekend.
the passing game has only gotten better
Yep.
as the year has gone
Yep.
on. Jordan Ta'amu has, as much as like how he's a little more inaccurate than you would like in a quarterback, and his yards are a little lower. His attempts are also lower, which factors into it. And also,
Yeah.
he's only turned the ball over once
Yep.
the whole season. So they're definitely playing good, effective, safe football. And now it's, if you stop the run, you're going to let us throw. And then when you let us throw, we're just going to send Abram Smith after you again.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's a way to fully stop the defenders. They're living up to their name. They're defending their undefeated record, and I think they're going to do it the rest of the season. So,
Yeah. Just to further prove my point about this defense, they are second in the league in sacks with 19, just one less than the Roughnecks 20. They have 5 forced fumbles and 6 fumbles recovered, and then 7 total picks. 3 of those returned for touchdowns, which the 7 total picks is second in the league behind the Roughnecks 8. So, yeah, just
against much better teams.
Against much better teams, yes. I mean, 2 of those games were against the Battlehawks, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So, 2 of those games against the Battlehawks, one of them against the Roughnecks, and I think one of them already against the Sea Dragons as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're looking at the 3 other teams that we have in our top 4. 4 of their games have been against those teams, and they're 6-0. So, the prospect of them going 10-0 is very much alive. They're an incredible team, and yeah, I don't know what took us so long to be on board with that, because I feel like for the first 3 or 4 weeks we kind of were like, okay, well, DC's cute, but they're going to lose at some point. Like, it is what it is. And now it's like,
kept getting better. They just didn't stop getting better, and I don't know why. It's like, okay, yeah, their defense is really good, but their offense is a little staggering. And then, like, Abram Smith runs for almost, like, 200 yards. And it's like, okay, well, they could run the ball, but they can't throw the ball. And then Lucky Jackson, 136 receiving yards.
yeah. Talbot with 250 yards passing out of nowhere. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
There's nowhere to stop them.
Well, we got 4 weeks left. I say it's time we put week 6 in the rear view, turn our attention to week 7. It's starting to get interesting, starting to heat up. We got some playoff races going on. I say it's time we get picky with it, man.
Not knocking on getting picky with it. Hey. Didn't quite go as planned, but
I never know what I'm gonna get.
Listen, you know, it's whatever song is stuck in my head that day, and Guns N' Roses cover of "Knocking on Heaven's Door" played on the radio today, so that's what's stuck in my head.
Terrible song.
Not the original though, just that cover.
Starting us off on Friday night. Over on FX and also on ESPN Plus, we have the 4-2 Seattle Sea Dragons heading into Arlington to take on the 3-3 Arlington Renegades at 7 p.m. Seattle on the road, 4-point favorites, and rightfully so. This is another line that I think you could probably bump up to at least 6 or 7 points, and I'd still pick the Sea Dragons to cover. I think Seattle's just miles better than this Renegades team. And as I've mentioned, it's going to be a dang shame if one of these teams gets in and the other does not. And we all know which ones I'm talking about when referring to that. But if you want to go watch this live, tickets are as low as $7, which is crazy to me. Go fill up that stadium, Arlington. You've got a team that's very much in the mix for a playoff spot, facing another team that is very much in the mix for a playoff spot. 2 very good teams. This is meaningful football down the stretch of the XFL season. go watch this game. Go fill up those stands. Go support this league. Even if you don't like the Renegades, just go do it. I've got Seattle in this one because I think the Sea Dragons are just a better team. Who you got, man?
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Sea Dragons. I don't see a reason to pick the Renegades. I think Seattle, even with their offensive woes the last couple weeks, their defense is still grown, and the Arlington Renegades are very, very, very prone to turnovers.
Yeah.
So yeah, give me the Sea Dragons. probably the easiest, second easiest pick this week.
Yeah, that Arlington offense is just so inconsistent, man. There's nothing to like about, I mean, really about the team in general, but especially the offense. The offense has just been so underwhelming, especially knowing that Kyle Sloter is a quarterback for them, and what we saw from Sloter last year with the Breakers in the USFL. It's just been so underwhelming. But let's move over to Saturday at 3 p.m. over on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus. We have the 2-4 San Antonio Brahmas heading out to Las Vegas and their garbage stadium that sucks and is terrible and it's a complete eyesore for the league and nobody even wants to show up and go there because they only get like 6,000 fans every single week. It's a terrible flipping decision. But we have San Antonio coming into town to take on the 1-5 Vegas Vipers at Cashman god-awful field. Weirdly, the Vipers are 2.5-point favorites in this game, which I guess that makes sense because they're the home team, but I don't like that line at all. Vegas should almost never be the favorite unless they're playing the Guardians. And tickets for this game are as low as $8 if you want to go stare at a freaking wall on the opposite side of the field for 3 hours. Be my guest at stupid Cashman Field. I've got the Vegas Vipers getting this one on Saturday. I don't like it. This is what San Antonio's made me do. Oh, Sham Antonio. That's what I'm going to call them. Sham Antonio has made me pick the Vegas Vipers. I don't like it. I won't stand for it. Hines Ward, do what you got to do. Rally this team and get them to get some flipping wins because I'm not picking the Vipers ever again with their stupid stadium and their stupid team that can't do jack crap. I don't like it. Don't make me do it. I've got Vegas. Who you got, man?
You want to talk about an inconsistent offense? The Vipers, through their 6 games, week 1, 20 points. Week 2, that was against the Renegades. Against the Defenders, they scored 6 points. Against the Sea Dragons, they scored 26 points. Against the Defenders again, they scored 18 points. Against the Guardians, they scored 35 points. And against the Battlehawks, they scored 6 points.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's what the line is because Vegas seems to be at times way better at scoring than the Brahmins are.
I guess.
I would also like to point out that April Fool's football here, like they're really playing a prank on us because we're gonna have 2 awful games. This one is just gonna be bad football, and then the other one is just gonna be a blowout.
But the other one will at least be fun because you get to watch a fun team.
Yeah, but they're not in DC, so we don't get a beer.
This is true. This is true. You make a good point.
But we're not at that game yet. We're at this game, which is a little bit tougher to pick. I am going to make it interesting because I can't bring myself to pick the Vipers.
I don't blame you.
So let's just be different this week on the games that we can. And I'm going to go with the San Antonio Brahmas. I, again, have them 5th in my power rankings. I think they're the best of the worst. I think their defense has been pretty good, especially against the bad teams. And I think they'll continue that against the Vipers.
If Vegas has a team next year, I might lose it. There is zero reason that city deserves a team. Like, if you want to keep that team around, you better go fill that stupid stadium to the brim for the next like 4 weeks or however many home games they have left, because they're averaging the worst attendance across the league. They're playing in the biggest eyesore of a stadium, and they have the second worst record. There's no flippin' reason that team should be a thing next year. Move the Vipers to another city. Just do it. It'll just be better.
Devin, do you want some good news?
What's some good news?
Do you want some good news?
What's some good news?
This is actually the last home game for the Vipers.
Good. No longer do I have to stare at a freaking wall as an end zone. Garbage, man. It's so bad. It's so bad. I don't like. I understand why there's only 6,000 people going to these games. Like, who wants to go see that? Who wants to go stare across the football field at a flipping wall? Dumb. It's so stupid. And I just want to point out it's very difficult right now for me to not let some 4-letter words fly when talking about this team. But I'm trying to keep it. I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to be as family friendly as possible and not get that cursed E next to our podcast.
This is E for everyone, not E for explicit.
Let's move on to a game I'll actually enjoy watching. At 6 p.m. over on ESPN and ESPN Plus, we have the 6-0 DC Defenders heading on down to take on the 0-6 Orlando Guardians. This is the game to go to if you just want to go to a sporting event. $3 tickets. $3 tickets for this game, probably because Orlando is 0-6 and absolute stinky garbage and the worst of the bunch. But at least they have a decent stadium. On the road, DC are 9.5-point favorites. I think you could bump that up to 20, and I'd be on board. There's no way that this Orlando team keeps it within 20 points. There's no way. The over/under is 45. DC is going to score that by themselves. And probably score that and absolutely shut out the Guardians because the Defenders' defense is really freaking good and the Orlando offense is really freaking bad. So, you do the math. We're not a math podcast. You can do the math and figure out what's going to happen. But it's not going to be good for Orlando fans, which is why I'm picking the Defenders because I'm not an idiot and there's absolutely no way. There's no way that the Guardians beat the Defenders. If the Guardians beat the Defenders, we'll call it podcast over with at that point. We just won't do another episode. It won't be worth it because what's the point? We know nothing, obviously. But it's not going to happen. And if it does, I don't know. Hell's going to freeze over. You might as well just not step out your door because apparently the apocalypse is here. Bad things are brewing if that happens. Who you got, man?
Sorry. Just imagining the podcast just being over because the Guardians upset the Defenders.
I mean, it's going to be over because we're all going to be dead. Like I said, the apocalypse is going to be here. The rapture's going to have happened. We'll be in the end times. It'll be over with. What's the point of a podcast at that point?
At this point, if you're the Orlando Guardians, like, I wouldn't even go out there and try. Just pull a Savannah Banana and just do wacky shit stuff. Bleep that out. Bleep it out. Just put Paxton Lynch in some stilts. Do a bunch of TikTok dances. Do what you got to do to entertain those fans. Can you imagine going to a sporting event and paying more for the beer than you did for the ticket to get in the stadium?
I mean, I feel like I've probably done that at baseball games just because, like, you can find some at most baseball stadiums. I feel like you can find some decently priced, like, upper level nosebleed seats, which I'm a big enough baseball fan. I'll go see games. So I got no problem with that. And you can find them for like $5 to $10, especially if it's on a weekday night. And weekday day games are even better. So, you pay $5 for a cheap seat and you'll pay, I don't know, $8 to $10 for a beer. And yeah, I feel like I've done that. But for a football game, yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's what a lot of fans are going to get, and they're going to have pretty good seats because I feel like that stadium isn't big enough to have bad seats, really. So,
Yeah. But the cheaper the ticket means the more beer you can consume.
that's
So,
true. That's a good point.
win-win.
Uh, yeah, I'm going to go with the Defenders. I think that's an obvious choice. I think we've probably we've probably talked more about this game than the amount of time the Orlando Guardians will have the ball.
Peter,
So,
if you had picked the Guardians, I would have banished you from this podcast. I
listen,
would have banished you from this podcast. I would have banished you from ever appearing on the NFL version of this podcast. It'd be done. We would have putt stuff, and maybe just maybe we wouldn't even have putt stuff. That might just be done over with also, because I would never be able to trust a single word out of your mouth again if you had picked the Guardians to win this game.
no, yeah, the listen. I understand that, and I don't know why. I think my takes are fine, but I understand that you guys view my football takes as spicy.
That's because they are.
But there's no amount of spice that will make me pick the Guardians over the Defenders. That's, I mean, if a miracle happens, a miracle happens. I mean, football is football. But I'm not predicting miracles over here. I'm predicting, we're not a math podcast, but statistics are still a thing. Give me the Defenders.
That would be one hell of a miracle for it to pull off.
That'd be Billy Crystal and the Princess Bride level miracle.
Oh, man. All right. Well, now to some actual good football. This is game of the week on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. over on ESPN and ESPN Plus. We have the 4-2 St. Louis Battlehawks heading down to Houston to take on the 4-2 Houston Roughnecks. At home, Houston 3-point favorites. I think that's fair. I think that the Battlehawks are capable of winning this game, and probably, based off the performance of the last 2 weeks, probably should win this game. But Houston is a very good team. Houston, while they have looked fraudulent over the last 2 weeks, still have a dang good defense. They still have an offense that can put up some points. And this Battlehawks team is going to have to come prepared to play. Tickets for this are as low as $24. Now we're getting some actual ticket prices. They're not just giving these tickets away for free, because it's a good game. It should be fun. Should be good. The over/under is 44. I can see them hitting that, because it's two good offenses, two MVP front runners, and Brandon Silvers and AJ McCarron. This is gonna be fun. If you're not tuning into this one, what are you doing? You probably just don't like football or don't like sports in general, which makes me question the whole reason why you're listening to this podcast. But I am going with St. Louis. I'm calling the Battlehawks to get the upset, get the win, keep their playoff hopes alive. They need every single win they can get, because Seattle is right there with them, and we know how good Seattle is. Who you got, man?
One thing I would like to point out. So the other factor, because the Roughnecks are 4-2. Besides the fact that their 2 losses were against good teams, the other factor is that the Roughnecks are defeated at home. And the Roughnecks return to Houston this week. And they need a bounce back game. And the Battlehawks are a good team. But maybe being at home, back in front of their home crowd after they had 4 straight weeks of being there and then 2 weeks without them,
Yeah.
might just be the kick in the pants they need.
Good.
So I'm going to keep it interesting, keep it spicy, go against you here, and pick the Houston Roughnecks.
I mean,
this game.
I expect nothing less but spice from you, so it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I can see Houston win this one. I mean, for 4 weeks they were our unanimous number one. Like, we were all aboard this team until they started losing, and it feels weird to just kind of flip on a dime like that and give up on this team so quickly. But it is the fashion in which they've lost in, and the teams which they've lost against. So it is worrisome the performance they've put up for the last 2 weeks. I'm hopeful they can turn it around because I still really like this team. And it would be a shame if the South doesn't have at least one good team in that division. So I'm hopeful for Houston. I want to see them turn around. I want to see them, get to that XFL championship and put up a fight against probably DC. But we'll see. They've got to keep winning. They've got to get some wins against good teams, and the Battlehawks are a good team, and certainly capable of one beating them. So, yeah, I think it'll be a fun one. That's definitely game of the week for sure.
And it's a Sunday afternoon. I'll try to stay awake. I'll be right home from playing disc golf. So,
hey, you can stay awake for this one. You can do it. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
You've been on my couch. You know how easy it is to fall asleep sitting on that couch.
I have. I also know that you can fall asleep anywhere. So
it's also true.
I mean, literally anywhere.
I'm not arguing with you. It's true.
Oh, man. Well, as always, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to us in whatever form or fashion that you're doing so. If you're on YouTube, click that subscribe button. If you're, listening to us on Spotify or Apple or Stitcher or Pandora or whatever other weird podcast service that's out there, maybe follow us somehow on there. Maybe give us a review, throw some stars our way. Whatever you got to do to show your love, we'll appreciate it. We do have some socials that we, as always, don't use, so follow at your own risk. I believe Blake is still running our Twitter page, so, maybe go interact with him. But the real fun is happening in the Discord. Come hop into the Discord. That's where the party is all day, every day. But as always, I think that's that.
Good ciao.